In a 17-minute speech, Arizona Senator Jeff Flake announced that he will not run for re-election and even criticized the president and the direction of the political party. Now, other Republicans, such as Senator John Corker, made similar comments toward the president and stated that he's lost faith in Trump's ability to rise to the presidency. Joining us now to discuss the latest on the Republican Party, we welcome now our political commentator and owner of Retrovision Media, Lee Bines. Good to have you, Lee.
Good to be back as usual.
Well, we bring you back every week. There's always something new in the headlines, but this really comes not as a surprise to some, with Jeff Flake announcing he will not be seeking re-election. Some people feel as though that because there's another candidate that's running, Steve Bannon's running behind him, that this was pretty much going to be the end of the line for Jeff Flake anyway. Agree, disagree?
Well, you know what? It's unfortunate that the voices that are finally coming out against Donald Trump are all people who are not running anymore. John McCain, Corker, well, even George W. Bush and Barack Obama last week came out in a barrage of interviews, speeches, et cetera, to let the world know that there's a high degree of dissatisfaction with this administration. If you really think it through, Flake, I was really appreciative of him coming out and making the statement that he did, calling other Republicans to the mat to stop being complicit in allowing Donald Trump to do what he's doing without any kind of pushback whatsoever. But again, midway through the speech, just as you said, he announced that he wouldn't be running again. So again, any of the GOP members that would want to give them pushback could actually say, well, they got nothing to lose. They were really cowards. Why didn't they do this before? But if you really think this through, Bob Corker, who was the first to start this flack going, indicated that the president has difficulties telling the truth. The president is not fit for the job. The president is taking the nation in a really bad direction, and the international community is watching wide-eyed, and we're in a space right now that we've never been before.
And right here in the United States, of course, we're saying the Republican Party's in their own civil war.
Well, yeah, and when you initially talk about a civil war, you're talking about two separate parties, but my analysis leads me to believe that we're talking about three separate parties or three groups within the Republican Party that is at war. We have the Steve Bannon wing of the party, who's pretty much catering to the lowest elements within the United States, specifically white America. Then we have what I have deemed the OMG group. The, oh my God, what the hell did we get ourselves into? These are people who voted against Hillary Clinton as opposed to voting for Donald Trump. And then, of course, we have the third group, which I call the big rich or the corporate wing of the party. And the only thing that they're interested right now is getting those tax cuts and tax reform done. In fact, that's the only reason why more Republicans that do have something to lose haven't come out more strongly against Donald Trump, because they're wedded to the idea that we've got to get these tax cuts through. Now, if in fact that this tax plan, the tax reform that he's trying to get through goes the way that healthcare went, you'll see massive people leaving, supporting Donald Trump, because he will have outlived his usefulness.
What do we see happening by way of the Republican Party going forward? Midterm elections are right around the corner. Does this give the Democrats traction, or is this just gonna?
As we've been saying before, the Democrats have a duty to come up with a plan, come up with a leader that they can rally behind. Right now, when Barack Obama came out last week and gave his speech in support of a couple of gubernatorial races, people were really surprised. They were very happy. They were pleased to see that he had come back on the scene, because there is a vacuum in the Democratic Party. And if they don't get their act together, we have no idea to predict what could go down in the future.
What's to make? We know the president's gotten recent comments and he's had some challenges. And as we're just joining us right now, Lee Bines, our political commentator, talking to us about what is going on in Washington, D.C., the latest with President Trump, as well as the Republicans in their moving away and distancing themselves from the president. One of the big controversies is that the president had with the widow of our slain servicemen, comments made, and then yet and still the White House pretty much saying, listen, we're not backing down for what we're saying. The president said what he said, and Kelly saying, listen, when it comes to these comments, people should just pretty much back off. The president did what he was supposed to do.
Well, you know what? The flip side of that argument is the fact that this was a Gold Star family member who lost her husband. She's looking at looking at raising 3 kids alone on the widow's salary of a military person, which is not a lot of money. If she got it wrong in any way, which I doubt very seriously because there was a significant amount of witnesses to that conversation, if that off chance that she got it wrong, the president should have just let it go. But he's petty, he's vindictive, he has to get the last word, or in his case, he has to get the last tweet every time. So he placed himself in a position where he placed himself in a position where he had to call on his chief of staff to come and back him up. In doing that, the chief of staff screwed up and blamed Federica Wilson, the Florida representative, who was actually the mentor of this young man. She knew this kid from a long time, and as a result of that, when he lost his life, she started asking questions. Now, if if 45 wasn't the man that he is, he actually did us a favor by bringing this to the fore. By that I mean he gave us an opportunity to see what the hell was going on with these military missions all around the world. We as the public, as well as Senate, the people who should be handling oversight for these issues, had no idea that we had ramped up to 1,000 military personnel in Niger. We had people in Chad. I started finding out that we've got people in Nigeria, Mali, and we don't have any idea of what those missions are, what they are there to accomplish, how much it's costing, how long they expect to be there. And until that happens, and we have proof of this because Lindsey Graham, Republican, and Chuck Schumer, Democrat, both came out and said that they had no idea. So there is no accountability right now as to what's happening with these missions.
And the breaking news out of Washington, D.C. right now is that the United States is promising an investigation into what went on overseas. We do know that this person's, the soldier's body was found at least 48 hours later, about 1.5 miles away. We've heard from Washington, while they don't have all the answers. But the problem that we're having on this side of the aisle is that there are 2 separate stories that's going on. The United States is saying one thing, other countries are saying something else, and the truth is somewhere in the middle?
Well, if we're talking about trying to get the truth out of the White House, the only thing that we've been able to determine thus far is that there's a lack of command, a lack of control, and a lack of confidence as well, and in that environment. So with all of those things going on, and the fact that the president, being who he is, has pretty much abdicated the responsibility of carrying out the military operations to the Defense Department or the Pentagon, if anything goes wrong, he can clearly say, well, it wasn't my fault, the generals must have made a mistake. I'm clean. I've given them the orders to do what they're supposed to do, and that'll be that. So we may never really find out what really happened to those 4 soldiers who lost their lives, or why they were really there, except for the fact that General Dunford came to the mic and tried to explain, look, we're over there for the purpose of training, arming, and equipping the locals in order to answer the challenge that's coming from groups like Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and Boko Haram.
And what we know is about 800 troops are still out there as we speak today. Lee Bines, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us today. As always, you catch Lee every week here on Oprah, bringing us the political perspective. Lee, thanks much.
Sorry for the perspiration, but I'm glad to be here.
Listen, it's hot under fire, man. It's hot under fire. Listen, stay tuned. We'll be back with more show. We'll be right back right after this.